10 seconds. $2? Holy crap. Well, don't usually watch on 2 hours, but hello, it is September 11 to 26 p.m. Thursday. Well, I just watched something in your future. I'm gonna watch this whole thing. So. About 2 hours, and I get, I don't know. Just kidnap children show. President of the Republic of 8 days ago. Poland. Oh, perfect. Oh, that's why the president met with the president. I just found out the president at the cabinet meeting met President Poland. That's why he met the. I just figured out why President Trump met with the president of Poland. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Anyway. Yeah. Let me see if I can find something to tell, some sort of video to show both the president of Poland and President Trump about the future. It'll be interesting, but let's see, because has to be. Wait, time's up for Democratic obstruction. I'm gonna just. Belarus too.
What happened yesterday with the assassination of young Charlie Kirk. Today is also the anniversary of 9/11.
It is. I haven't seen the.
On the morning of 9/11, I was meeting with the Secretary of Defense at the Pentagon when
Really?
the attack began in New York. I had just left the Pentagon when it happened there. And so I think we were
You've been here a long time now.
stunned by the acts of political violence that have occurred over the past.
I'm pretty shocked.
And more.
Senator.
And so if it's all right, let's pause for a moment of silence in memory of all that has occurred to us and our country. Thank you. This morning, the committee meets to consider the nomination of General Christopher J. Mahoney for the position of Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Before we begin,
And they're really motivating.
We've done the moment of silence. Let's turn to today's business now.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'm going to try to find, because I just found the president of Poland.
I believe President Trump's made an excellent choice in selecting him for his role. His fellow service members tell us he's an admirable leader. We live in the most dangerous national security moment since World War II. I've said this at the beginning of almost every hearing we've had this entire year. An axis of aggressors led by the Chinese Communist Party and Vladimir Putin's leads us on.
One day ago.
Our adversaries have started wars against Ukraine and against Israel, and now they threaten to open a third front against Taiwan. There's also the fourth.
The sun is
hemisphere, as
perfect. I mean,
into America. The cartels.
That's what I would do. Then I think this is
in the Middle East, President Trump launched Operation Rough Rider against the Iran-backed Houthis. This strengthened historic U.S. partnerships
Perfect.
in the Gulf. During his visit to the region in May, the president signed
So I
deals
got it.
totaling $2 trillion. Most significantly, the president backed his
Now I found the E5 meeting,
commitment
and it'll be brief the Polish and
He took action in June, striking Iran's nuclear sites. In the Pacific,
it's loading.
China's military activities are at an all-time high. China is reflecting what Admiral Paparo has described as a, quote, rehearsal for war.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was
Since
talking
Fisher saw these
to
preparations firsthand during a
the
recent
cabinet.
trip to the region.
What would you do before you have to, if you want to launch a surprise war against
and the
somebody?
Philippines.
you
This
remove the
was
time
a
machine.
button up deterring the Chinese Communist Party.
So you wouldn't get any warning.
Xi Jinping also was the
So-
largest backer of war criminal Vladimir Putin's quest
Yeah.
to prolong the bloodshed in Ukraine.
Oh, we
President
need
Putin
a.
has chosen to put Russia on a wartime footing. If we are to prioritize dealing with the threat from China, we will need a strong transatlantic alliance capable of deterring Russian aggression.
Mhm.
President Trump affirmed his commitment to
Yeah,
European
sure.
security
Hold on
at the
one second.
NATO summit and catalyzed a new era of rearmament among NATO allies. And this committee, up and down both sides of the dais,
Yeah.
has
Kash Patel.
part and parcel to it. In our own
Because we haven't found the
President Trump has restored security at our border.
Good
In short,
talk with
President
Kash
Trump has
Patel.
shown that America first means American interests first.
Mhm.
And American interests are not confined to a single continent. To protect these interests, including peace and prosperity for Americans, the Pentagon requires a sustained trillion-dollar
This Sky News
budget
and,
alongside
should be-
fundamental reform of its acquisition and budget processes. If confirmed, General Mahoney will lead a crucial portion of this reform. Our military's process for generating requirements for our
Kash Patel.
warfighters. The Vice Chairman leads the Joint Requirements Oversight Council. Today, the
There's something
council takes
close.
an average of 800 days simply to approve the military's need for a weapon
No, it's
system.
been finished
800
now.
days.
Mhm.
That's way too long. With technology and threats moving
Yeah,
quickly,
it's
we
way
can
too
no
far
longer spend
gone.
years debating what the perfect solution would look like 5 or 10 years in the future. The Forged Act seeks to
Have
streamline
I?
the bureaucracy. And this committee is
Okay,
leading
Kash Patel.
the charge for that
Perfect.
in the
Let's
fiscal
just take
year
over
2026 National Defense
Press
Authorization
conference.
Act. If he's confirmed, I look forward to
Okay.
working with General Mahoney to make progress in this era.
That's 4 months ago. It's too far in the
Exceptionally
past.
qualified to take on these challenges as Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
I already saw this one. Nope, can't do it. The whole thing.
To understand
4 months
the
ago. So.
value of joint warfare in light of the complexity of the threats our nation faces. I also know
Yeah.
that Vice will benefit greatly from his candid
Crap.
advice. With that, I
8 days ago. There we go. Canal the country is perfect.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Found
Chairman.
one.
Let me join
Anyway.
in recognizing the victims of political.
Well, Senator Hiroto, I'm sorry for being so mean to you and trolling you all the time.
9/11, those who died and were injured on the attack on New York City and Washington D.C. But thank you, Mr.
I know,
Chairman,
man.
on this item.
And I think you, over the years, I must have told you, you know, we all think that Islamic terrorists attacked us on 9/11. Are we sure? I mean, because if I had warned you all beforehand, if I knew, like if Andrew knew his superpowers in high school or in college, right? I mean, if somebody just told me as soon as I became a freshman in college that I had superpowers, I could have warned you about 9/11. And this time on never happened. So it's something that we need to really, really consider, and it's classified. Did the Russians do 9/11? Was it the Russians? Was it Vladimir Putin? You know, who did 9/11? It's you all think Islamic terrorists. Are we sure it's Islamic terrorists and not because it was a Russian operation in the long term? Right? What would harm America more than anything else if you were the Russians? Force us into 2 wars with Islamic terrorists for over years and exhaust all of our soldiers, divide our country, and
my view. Steps that
I mean,
threaten the very
divide
foundation of
Republicans
the
and Democrats for decades to come, so that our American national unity has been fractured.
But evidence suggests that each refused to
You know,
follow political
how much of a long game has Russians been playing
the administration's political plan.
with the time,
We have seen
basically,
troops deployed
with
into
time.
warring cities, not
And,
in response to natural disasters or national
It
emergencies,
is
but to
frightening.
make a
I
political
mean,
point, resulting in intimidation and division. Across the country, U.S. troops are being
yeah, dividing Republicans and Democrats so that we are fighting each other instead of fighting the Russians. You know?
risking readiness and eroding the trust between the military and the American people.
Yeah, exactly.
Inside the Pentagon, Secretary Hicks has dedicated
Well, I mean, that's the thing.
time and resources to search for leakers, including willing career military officers threatening their jobs and creating a climate
Really?
of fear. At the Military Service Academy, books are being removed from libraries and diversity programs dismantled, not because they harm radars, but because they offend a political agenda. This will not increase without. It will undermine the ability of our next generation of workers to think critically and lead Americans from all walks of life. And of course, the Department of Defense
Wait, what? Let me go, one second.
positions unfilled, weakening our ability to deter our adversaries. Protect the nation.
Yeah.
Every day, we are seeing the real dangerous impacts of these firings and reprisals.
Yeah.
Perhaps most alarming of all, the president's fundamentally challenging the rule of law. Last week, the president ordered an airstrike on a speedboat off the coast of
Yeah, that's interesting.
which reportedly killed 11 people. This was a premeditated use of lethal force carried out without congressional authorization, without clear legal justification, and without evidence of an imminent threat.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, they're just saying that drugs are imminent threat on America.
Over the past several months, the administration has
I mean-
deployed major naval air assets into the Southern Command AOR, including an
Area
amphibious
of-
squadron with roughly 4,500 Marines and sailors, 3 destroyers, a
Interesting
guided vessel
question.
cruiser, a fast attack submarine, F-35 fighter aircraft, and P-8 reconnaissance aircraft. The real cost and opportunity costs of this operation are significant, and clearly the administration intends to.
Well, the United States military is not fighting any wars. We do not have any wars. You mean war with Venezuela? That would be interesting.
General, I'm concerned that this administration is silencing military leaders from providing both legal advice and best military advice, or even speaking honestly about operations. When general and admiral are afraid to tell the truth, we lose the very cannon that keeps our nation safe.
I don't know.
It's
I
not
mean,
about politics. It's about war and peace. The oath that each military serviceman takes is to the Constitution.
why the hell is Venezuela such a shithole? Anyway,
General, these are a few of the ongoing challenges we
Chavez,
face.
man.
During today's hearing, I
Sorry,
expect
yeah.
and I'm confident
When
you will
did
provide your best military advice to the president.
Hugo Chavez
Even that
Chavez take power?
advice, if that advice is not what they would want to hear. Like every other senior officer who comes before the committee,
Yeah, 1988 is a long ass time ago. I mean, 1988, 2000.
even if those views differ from the administration, and I expect you.
Bolivarian Revolution. I
Committee
mean,
will request briefings and information to
you know
assist
what I
the
remember?
The safety
I remember in college reading about looking at the oil spills in Venezuela that
At a momentous time. Thank you. I look forward to your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Senator Reed. And now, my duty to
Yeah. Oh, how are we gonna fight wars in the future?
ask you a series of questions, General Mahoney. This
What is it?
committee
Sir, no, no, have you ever had unwanted sexual advances of you? That would be scary.
And other appropriate committees of the Congress be able to receive testimony, briefings, and other communications of information. Have you adhered to the applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
I have, Senator.
Well,
Do you agree with
Andrew can
answers
say
to
answer
personal
that.
views, even if those views differ from the administration in power?
I will, Senator.
Have you assumed any duties or undertaken any actions which would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
I have no idea what he's gonna confirm by the way. He's watching this film too,
Laws
so.
and deadlines established for requested communications, including questions for the record and hearings.
Damn,
I will, Senator.
that's gonna be interesting.
Cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests.
I will, Senator.
Will those witnesses be protected from reprisal for their testimony? Or
Yeah, that's an interesting question for Andrew. I mean,
do you agree, confirm to
You speak
appear to
freely,
testify upon request before this
I
committee?
mean, well,
I
Alexis
do,
is.
Senator.
Do you agree to provide documents, including copies of electronic forms of communications?
I do, Senator.
Oh man.
In a timely manner. Will you do so in a
Yeah.
timely
Time later as well.
I record all these things,
by
man.
a duly constituted committee or to
I
consult
mean, I told Secretary Clinton that I already opened my mouth, but
or denial in providing such documents. Now the answer.
I will,
I
Senator.
will try to whisper again. I mean, for history's sake, I will whisper for history's sake.
Now, at this point, you are recognized for your opening statement, and you might want to comment about your family. I don't know.
I have no idea who you are. Nice to meet you. My name's Andrew.
But Chairman Wicker and Ranking Member Reed and all the members of the committee.
Family.
Thank you and good morning. I would be remiss if I didn't pause to comment just briefly on the way to this day. 24 years ago,
Okay.
America was struck cowardly by people who mistook slaughter for strength. From the smoke and the ruin of that morning came a generation of Americans
Andrew probably had the
who
same
carried
problem, you
forward
know.
the memory of the fallen, but not just in their words, in their dedication and in their deeds. It's in that spirit, I hope, that I am here before you this morning.
I was just thinking about
I'm honored to be the president's
how many
nominee
American
to be the next
soldiers did
vice
not come
chairman of
home
the Joint
because
Chiefs of Staff.
Andrew wasn't there to
Appreciate
help
his
them.
confidence. I also want to thank
And the
Secretary
president in their
Hicks
time.
and Chairman Kane for their trust and confidence in my nomination.
Because right now,
Grateful to this
you
committee
know,
for the time afforded me over the last week
even
or
with
so.
the bombing of Iran, no American soldiers harmed so far. Just that
I also want to
accident
thank
in
this
the
committee
Lithuania,
for
I
your
think,
tireless work
the
in
tank
addressing the tough
sank into
challenges
the
we
bog,
face
but
in the Department.
that I know.
From
of.
acquisition to reform, your efforts in emphasizing
Accidents all over the
clean
world
audit
sometimes,
is the
but
main
other
key
than that,
that propelled the joint force forward and increased our readiness and lethality.
but
I want to thank the team that prepared me
how
and worked
effective can
tirelessly
Andrew be
with
if I
their
couldn't
patience
save
and
Charlie
professionalism.
Kirk's life? I mean, that is an interesting
Most of all,
point.
Senator Wicker, I want to thank my family. My wife,
That's
and my
why, I
children,
mean,
my son, and my
that
daughter
is so
have been a
scary.
source of strength throughout my career. Countless
If I couldn't
service,
save Charlie's life,
this
could I
holiday
save
is the
everybody's life?
unpredictable rhythm of military service. I will say without a doubt, though, that the experiences of my family, the friendships we have made, have been priceless along the way. Their support has made my service possible.
I
and
don't
I'm forever
know.
grateful. I'd also like to thank Admiral Grady and his wife Christine for their
I don't know if I fought with General Mahoney and her has passed. I found out just recently. I fought with BB in the 1967. I didn't know I fought with him because telepathically, I warned the Israeli military about the tank attack in Israel. I mean, I fought with him in his past, and he was waiting for me to be born. What a weird experience. I mean, if I remember, 1967 tank, Syria. Yeah, 6-Day War, and
trained as an infantry officer by the Marine Corps, fighter pilot by
pretty
the
sure that's the
Navy,
one.
to fly for the Air Force,
Operating for Heavy War, they were ultimately unmatched by the superior.
using Space Force cueing assets. I've seen how we fight across the joint force and how we have to be prepared for the next fight.
Maybe I'm wrong war, right? Yom Kippur War. I'm thinking Yom Kippur War?
Determine and bring our focus now.
Because I thought it was a Yom
This
Kippur
must
War.
recognize that the security environment is more dynamic stable than any point.
Yom
in
Kippur
recent
War
memory.
is.
When we maintain and strengthen our homeland defense.
Yeah, never mind. It's no war. Wrong war. Wrong war.
Routinely challenge international
But I probably would have fought with them
our
too.
interests both near and abroad.
That tank battle's from the Yom Kippur War.
Malicious criminal actors threaten the region's
Never
stability,
mind.
and
Never
terrorist
mind.
networks persist.
Not yet.
In the most nascent domain, space, cyber, they're no longer novel. Now, they are the new norm. These challenges demand our joint force remain ready now while evolving to the future.
I cannot believe how old BB is.
Require continued modernization, innovation, and speed. And
The
its
6
scale,
Day
not just
War
within our own
is
outfit, but with industry, all of industry. Balancing
BB
our capability and
Netanyahu.
capacities with our allies and partners.
6 Day War.
And deepening our integration across the services and importantly the COCOMs. We must invest in advanced capabilities, strengthen our joint warfighting concepts, and maintain our technical edge.
His older brother fought in the
Of the most
1967
precious asset
war.
we've got. It is proven time and time again, and that's our people. It is our most critical advantage. If confirmed, I will
Fought
continue
with his brother.
ensure and work to make our joint force ready, lethal, and capable of prevailing against any enemy. Again, thank you for the opportunity to appear, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm gonna have to fight the
I'll take
6 Day
a
War soon.
round of questioning.
Interesting.
General, much of
Going
the
to war.
Defense Reconciliation Bill is unspecific and will technically be at the direction of the Department of Defense, though we have provided recommendations.
Yom Kippur War. Fun. Yom Kippur.
General Mahoney, a quick
Tell
yes
that.
or no question for you. Will you carry out the congressional intent for reconciliation funding in the One Big Beautiful Bill?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now let's talk about JROC, the Joint Requirements Oversight Council. This is a Pentagon group led by the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It oversees the process for defining military needs for new weapon systems. As I mentioned in my opening statement, a 2021 GAO report found that approving these needs often takes
Fascinating.
over 800 days, far longer than the target of 100 days. We're trying to correct that in the Forged Act by removing the JROC as approval authority and focusing on collaborating
Okay.
with COCOM.
When was this?
leaders to
WCP 9.
identify
Why is
extra
random
comment about this? Our
December 3rd,
NDAA,
2015?
which I hope is enacted
Okay.
and might at least move from the Senate relatively soon, seeks to move the focus of the JROC from reviewing paperwork to designing future force. So, do you agree with this approach?
Senator, I agree with the reform approach, end to end, from requirements to resources, and the Forged Act moves us along that trajectory.
All right.
Well, good morning,
Okay.
everybody.
Sorry. I'm gonna be a little bit of a.
Autonomous.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And certainly
More to ask him, I mean,
leaders about
I didn't win the
in
lottery,
the last
Senator
day
Wicker.
with Russia.
But that's I know what I would have done with the money possibly. I mean, I thought I was gonna.
Drones into Poland, a NATO ally of the United States.
There's something. I was talking to the cabinet
But whether they're
and
aerial,
probably talked to Secretary
sea
Jesus.
surface or subsea, we're
I never
relying
thought about the
on
sea hazards one.
attritable autonomy because if we lose it, which we will, it's not a huge budget buster. We need to provide the Pentagon with billions of dollars to scale these programs. They do cost less, although
Yeah, that's the thing.
but there is the matter of
What do we do about our-
keeping them from the elements? You can't just leave a drone out in the desert or out in the snow.
Yeah,
You commented about this.
and will they be out of date?
About the logistics
Stockpiling drones
needed to support them.
might not be a
So,
good idea.
Are we
So
actually in the right places? Have we enabled the infrastructure we need for storage, electricity, and more?
Well, that's the thing,
plans
Senator Wicker.
should you be confirmed
the
by
Russians don't have the technology, right? What we need is
You bring up
little tiny radar with 2 machine guns.
Is autonomy.
Right.
We've seen artificial intelligence built into the ability of weapon systems, in this case drones, to be able to communicate between each other, to be able to recognize objective areas, recognize targets,
Yeah, and then choose
targets,
targets automatically. And
bring that into the decision loop. We have to move faster in this regard, whether it's remote systems, semi-autonomous or autonomous, to bring those to, as you say, a scalable level, but also recognize the fully encumbered cost, from flyaway cost to storage to maintenance.
yeah, and that makes no sense whatsoever because nobody has the technology right now to shoot these drones down because they're basically tiny little flak panzer, right? Basically, a Terminator-sized flak panzer, basically, right? Little tiny, like a little tiny tank, you know, with a radar system.
And I have
But you wouldn't use treads, because that's what I was imagining. What I would do.
Senator Reid,
Do you guys know about that Boston Dynamic mule, right?
Again, congratulations.
If you put a little tiny radar on that mule and 2 machine guns on that mule, and then you start shooting down all these drones like a anti-aircraft, a tiny little anti-aircraft gun. And those drones become with like a shotgun or something, automatic shotgun. Think about it, because all you need to do is blow up the drone, destroy the drone, and you don't have to jam it, you don't have to hack it, you don't have to hack the drone, and then you destroy the drone. And if we stockpile drones thinking that they're going to be
orders that are illegal or
Yeah, I mean-
walk the line. From a personal perspective, I took an oath as a second lieutenant. I have taken it again and again.
Defend the
once
Constitution,
again
yeah.
for 38 years. And in that oath, it's an oath to the idea of the United States, to the Constitution. And among my fellow officers, among my fellow Marines,
rule of law,
we
yeah.
propound that time and time again.
These difficult orders usually come in the gray zone.
Yeah.
You're looking for clarity, and the institutional clarity typically comes from the judge as the generals. If you're in a situation like this, will you pursue such a
Clear present danger, right? What Senator Reid you're talking about is clear present danger.
And once
Does
we
the
get
president
to
have the
experience,
authority to
I've
kill
never climbed in
drug
to the
dealers?
cockpit with weapons in the bay or on the wings without understanding completely from the operational law perspective, the ROE perspective, and the
Rules of engagement.
conflict perspective? It's absolutely critical.
Yeah, I mean you're basically talking about the clear present danger movie, right? Do you have the authority to kill drug dealers like they're terrorists?
that we should get
And
the key facts?
it's a non-state entity, Senator Reid. I mean, drug cartels are non-state
Certainly,
entities.
we should always comply with the law.
You know.
And as I started the testimony,
What's the difference between a terrorist organization and drug dealers, drug cartel? That is an interesting one. Because President Trump literally declared the drug cartel a terrorist
What do you think
organization.
you can do to improve interoperability between the services?
I mean, it's like seeing if Al Qaeda is planning an imminent attack against the United States, the president will be able to bomb them without any authority. I'm pretty sure. Even now. If you count, basically the argument is selling drugs in our country is terrorism, basically. That's what the president is saying. So,
Now,
well, somebody want to challenge that to the Supreme Court? Is selling drugs terrorism?
Is completely valid. We have to get rid of the bureaucracy.
Somebody should sue, right?
And Admiral Grady has started down
And
that
they're
road.
honest.
We have
Is
to make
selling
the
drugs
process
kind of terrorism?
less burdened by paperwork and more sensitive to speed and product.
Well, the good news is if you kill somebody, they don't usually get unkilled. So if you kill a drug dealer, they're pretty permanently dead.
To give you those tools. Are there any specific tools though that you think you need?
And that is an interesting question. Why did the U.S. Congress not give the President of the United States the authority
I think what
to
we need to do is look at
to
the
blow
authorities
up
that we have now.
drug
Look
boats
at some of the
before?
language enforced. On the House side, we have
Why did the
We also
Congress
just got done
allow
with a report
all these
from,
people
last year called
to
the
shoot
Eagle
at our Coast Guard
with a bunch of
and,
very, very good recommendations.
and run away
And
from our
an
Coast
outlier
Guard?
that's a little bit old that I think we should bring into the conversation is the PPBE report.
That is an
that,
interesting question. I mean,
Bob Hale and Ellen Lord chaired that also bring great ideas. And when we look at this and we take best of breed, I think we get a process once again from
yeah,
determining a gap, looking at the solutions against that
Yes,
gap,
President.
getting a coherent and quick acquisition strategy, and meaningfully, and this is important, synchronizing that with the resources. Those
Yeah.
three things, often treated as separate pillars, I believe, are a system. And if you don't treat them as a system, you're going to break down somewhere.
Yeah, I mean that's what advice that I would give to because we made mistakes over the Afghanistan war, we made mistakes with the Iraq war, and then let's not repeat them again. Because stockpiling drones will not do anything if the Russians create the countermeasures for those drones before we do. Because we should be creating countermeasures for the drones, and then
Thank you, Senator Reid.
because right now we think drones are dominant in warfare. Not if we create the countermeasures for those drones. Radar and then two machine guns with the radar. Automatic tracking in the radar, and you start shooting those drones out of the air, and they are no longer, no longer as dangerous as they
I
are.
would follow up with the ranking member's comment on the JSIDS process. I think we have a real opportunity here to
There's no
fundamentally
technology that just doesn't
change
exist yet,
that
though.
requirement process and be able to leverage resources. So I am also interested
Hope you don't mind.
in views and any.
It's great to be
Hi.
in Ohio on one of the FBI's.
This isn't on some random local TV channels.
Ohio, like the rest of the
It is
country,
September
is
11, 2025. You on September 3rd,
for
right?
children and our youth and our communities.
Yeah.
And
I need to tell you stuff about.
would not have been possible without the interagency efforts
Sorry.
of the DEA and
I mean, oh, man.
FBI
I'm totally multitasking. God only knows how much time I have.
And we wanted to take time to highlight why this
One
is such
second.
an important takedown. It is the first of its kind
What's the point of that?
in terms of how we actually get after the threat that is Chinese precursors, which are used to make fentanyl, which is used to kill tens of thousands
That's so
of
cool.
Americans a year.
But there's something I need to tell you because I told you were not. I don't know. I didn't see you in the cabinet meeting. I don't think.
Creating a
Cash.
program whereby if you want
FBI requires
to
rifle use to.
of fentanyl and cocaine
Yeah.
and meth, you have to go after where it's made.
Wait, let me read you the entire
what goes
story,
into making
Cash.
it. And the
Behind the Utah Valley University's LOSSE Lucy building, FBI forensics will start getting ever since September 11th. In the Woody area with previously agent called high-powered rifle a shooter used to kill political influence Charlie Kirk. Don't know. The Wall Street Journal and New York Times, citing law enforcement sources, reported it was an older model Mauser. This is USA Today. It was 30.006 caliber bolt action rifle, single shot, approximately 150 yards, cold shot. That is an interesting. I do not know. Andrew has never fired a sniper rifle before to know 150 yards if that is actually a cold shot from 150 yards. Single rifle, what the skill level of the shooter was. So.
I just want to leave you with a couple of statistics. We didn't just arrest a couple of people. We charged an enterprise.
Evidence of on markers on a small hill behind the building appeared to mark trail the shooter took. Scrambling through some trees nearby construction site
And
and
you should ask yourself this: what other country in the world has a fentanyl crisis?
yeah, let me just read.
Just us. That's not by accident. And then you should ask yourself, what about the volume and quantity of what was apprehended in just this operation?
Sorry, so I mean, hold
There's something
on.
like 139 kilograms of fentanyl powder. That's enough lethal doses for 70 million Americans. To put that in perspective, the state of Ohio has a population of 12 million people approximately.
That's,
5x Ohio. They also seized over 525 grand worth of powder that can be used to make fentanyl.
Hey, I'm just gonna read it. I don't need to
That's
read it
enough to
out
kill
loud.
another
Right?
270,000 Americans. This stuff is lethal. It is for too long, there has not been attacked. And that's why the priority of the FBI is national security and violent crime. And this case demonstrates the intersection of those two top mission sets that the FBI has. And we're proud to stand here in Ohio today in a first-of-its-kind effort to lead this takedown, to lead this initiative. And we're relying on you and the media to read these indictments and look at the complexities in which the CCP mainland operations will go through to import these substances to the Mexican drug cartels and put them onto our streets here through local operatives. And unless you unwind that web, and unless you track down every single person and business and entity and flow of money involved in it, you will never break the wheel. We are here today to break the wheel of fentanyl trafficking in the United States of America, and I couldn't be prouder to be here in Ohio to announce this initiative and this wonderful takedown. And again, thanks to our partners here on the ground, the SAC, the Attorney, DEA.
Yeah, it is September 11, 3:01 p.m.
It's a
Pacific
pleasure to be here, and
Standard
I'll let them give
Time.
you guys the details. Thank you.
Anyway, I mean, this should be September 3rd for you on other than winning lottery. I mean, it seems so. That's the anyway. Doesn't seem that much.
Good morning.
Mm.
My name's Dominic Drace. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Ohio. I'm honored today to be standing here with Director Patel, with
So I'm gonna pause it if I actually know who it is, you know, because you haven't found them yet, so I don't know who the shooter is. If I knew the shooter, I probably would have tried to tell you before the shooting happened and prevent it. And this happens so many times.
Located in China,
Because
and their co-conspirators
I wonder
here in the
if
United
that's the
States.
reason why some of these
particularly
things
here in
can't be
Southern District
prevented, because I did not wait until I found the
This
shooter and
indictment
just warned
says
you all, and you just
including
erase the event from happening in the first place. Maybe you just erase me.
in every part of the world.
Because as soon as something bad happens, I tell you about it, and then without giving you the shooter, and then if you don't know the shooter, you don't intercept the shooter before it happens in the first place,
My job
and all the causality
as United
sent
States
back
Attorney is to
years
protect the citizens of the Southern
is this
District of
event
Ohio.
happening,
Synthetic
and
opioids
right after
are
the
originally
shooting
from
happened,
or are
the news
supplied
placed a
so-called
clip
pharmaceutical
of
companies in
President
China
Trump sitting next to Charlie Kirk,
continue to make their way out
and
of the streets
President
of our
Trump heard the
communities, and they continue to
heard the
poison our
headline. It
citizens.
said Charlie Kirk shot,
That's
and
a
I could
threat
tell
to
from the
public
president
safety.
that he
It's a
heard
threat
it.
to our
He
national
heard it.
security,
Charlie Kirk shot, and
and it won't
he
be
knew about
tolerated.
it before years that he possibly.
Our five-count indictment
Because if I look
three
for
individuals in the United States,
Charlie
including two
Kirk,
from Tip City, Ohio,
President
22
Trump
Chinese nationals,
interview,
and 4 Chinese companies
I mean,
with whom those Chinese nationals are
You-
affiliated.
this one.
And I want to remind everybody that an indictment
CBS
is a
News,
charging
'cause look at this
document
one.
that contains allegations. The defendants
He's
charged in this
there's this
indictment
video.
are
There's a
accused
sharp
innocent
video,
until
and
proven
then
guilty in a court of law. The indictment
this one
alleges
right
that
here when
from
he's
at least
talking
January
to
2022 until the present, Eric Michael Payne of Tip City, Ohio, served as the main supplier of illicit cutting agents
this was 7 years ago. Turning Brook News.
operating in
7
the
years
Southern District
ago.
of Ohio. Payne
Crap.
allegedly purchased several kilogram shipments of these illegal cutting agents from the Chinese company defendants, who claimed to be
This is the
legitimate
problem.
online pharmaceutical and chemical companies.
March 27, 2018. Generation.
With the help of the 22
And President Trump
individually
already heard it.
Chinese nationals,
Even the event 7 years
these
ago.
companies knowingly marketed and
Anyway.
exported illegal cutting agents to U.S. customers like Payne,
Well, I will
Knowing
stop at 7 minutes.
that those substances would be
WC,
used to increase the yield of fentanyl
WCPO
that be eventually distributed on the streets of our community.
9. 7 minutes. Yeah. Crap.
Back to this committee and
I mean, I just warned
some authorities relief.
I just warned the Cash Patel about where the
funds for operations and maintenance funds, they're available.
where
for
the
you. Flexibility to bring them across fiscal years to 2 or 3 years would help. Also, built-in protections against continuing resolutions so that we're not living our modernization life.
Yeah, I don't know.
To my knowledge, Mr. Keaton Mr. Xi don't do modernization bionomics.
Yeah.
That would help. Those are two ideas, but there are many common sense ones throughout that.
I don't know what modernization
One
one
that comes to mind as the old budget guy is flexibility with the threshold amounts for reprogramming. In other words, being able to take larger amounts and move them across budget activities or move them across accounts so that we spend them.
You would be in charge of all three branches, right? So.
With combatant commanders, we have, you're looking at their concerns that they have many operational requirements that they have, how are you going to take those into consideration in the future JROC processes?
And the combatant commanders,
President Trump does not want American
require
troops in
swimming
Ukraine
critical,
fighting them.
and
So
quite frankly, they're the engine that's going to make the integration with the Joint Force run. So, if confirmed through the JROC process and other processes, the combatant commanders' sensitivities, requirements will be brought to the fore and treated very seriously.
Okay, thank you. Senator King, who's not here right now, but he and I are on strategic forces, and we often refer to the NC3 as the fourth leg of the triad. And the president's ability
Nuclear
to
triad.
control and communicate with our nuclear forces. I know you understand how
Damn.
important that is. It underpins our entire deterrent. Unfortunately, the services have not consistently prioritized modernizing the NC3 systems. The JROC and now the sunsetting JCIDS process provided a framework. It was a cumbersome one, but it was provided to ensure the proper resourcing of those NC3 systems. If confirmed, how do you plan to work with Secretary of
I mean, that is
Services
the only reason I
to
can
ensure
think
the
of.
NC3
I mean, Senator John Yanson,
modernization efforts are
why
going
Charlie
to
would actually not
progress in a
prevent
just
his own
coordinated,
death.
but also timely
Because if
manner.
I,
Ma'am, as you
Anyway.
state, strategic stability is
because his children
undergirded
will
by
exist
our
because of
strategic posture, our strategy, and we have to
7 years
understand
ago,
the rise of
meet
another
Erica.
nuclear peer in China. If I am confirmed on the JROC,
Yeah.
we will take on this new challenge and make sure that the requirements and gaps are filled expeditiously and married up with resources to the extent that I can influence.
the wife,
The
maiden name.
nuclear posture review is pretty clear.
That is literally the
about
only.
where we are with the terrestrial leg, where we are with the
Francis,
maritime leg, where we are with
Erica
the
Francis
air
Cook.
delivered leg, and as you point out, NC3 being that fourth leg, and we need to modernize and
Oh my
accelerate
God.
all of this.
I mean, the only thing I could think of why a man would give up his life is to protect the life of his children and his wife. And if he never meets his wife because of this moment, and
program of record for SLICM, and that was to fill a capability gap that
Erica
currently exists
Lang,
there. Are you
France,
familiar with the program?
if he hasn't met him,
I
then
am somewhat familiar with
tell him to start a family and leave
I'm
a
sure you'll look
legacy.
into it.
That
I'm
is
sure
the
it's
only
on
reason
time.
why
it.
I could think of a man would actually walk to his own death and not
We'll take the chair
to
for
his
a
family.
few moments.
Because he never meets his
She
wife,
will
if
withdraw.
never has his children, if he
Thank you, Mr.
doesn't.
Chairman, and congratulations,
That is the
General Miller.
only
Thank
reason
you
I
for
would think of a
taking
man
time
would
to,
give up his life.
talk
You know.
with me last week. I appreciated our conversation.
Otherwise, he would have just walked back inside. And
Many of us on this committee have concerns
Jesus
about
Christ.
rumors that we have heard about plans to withdraw U.S. forces from NATO's eastern flank, from the Korean Peninsula, and
are
from the
we?
Middle East. And on a bipartisan basis, as you may be aware, we limited the executive branch's ability to hastily withdraw without consulting with and certifying to Congress the effects of U.S. such a withdrawal on U.S. national security. I'm particularly concerned about maintaining U.S. leadership at NATO. That not only ensures U.S. command and control of our forces on the continent, but it gives us control over the nuclear weapons in Europe. I also just returned from Syria, where the U.S. is supporting the counter-ISIS mission, and ISIS regaining a foothold in the country would not only be detrimental to the
We're still fighting
security
ISIS then, yeah.
stability for a post-Assad Syria, but to the region and ultimately to the United States, given
let's not
the
do the same thing that happened.
lives that we put into
Don't
defeating
even,
ISIS in
yeah.
Syria. So can you talk about the benefits of having U.S. presence in these theaters? And if confirmed, do you commit to being transparent to Congress about what the plans are with respect to decisions about these theaters?
Senator,
Well,
I think
General,
our presence is critical. I think striking
let's not make the same
balance
mistake we
our
did with
allies and partners, not only in capability but in
the first time
capacity
when ISIS
is
came out,
extremely
man.
important, and I commit to sharing as much information as I can with you and with the committee and others.
Because
And do you have any
let's
sense
not make
of
be naive
whether
and make the
there are
assumption that
currently plans to withdraw
just
from
because
those
Assad
theaters?
has been overthrown that
Senator, I
everything's
have
gonna be okay.
No knowledge of the policy that would drive that.
Yeah, President hasn't
Thank
told
you.
me anything either. So
Last week, we also discussed the
Oh, what's
Portsmouth Naval
happening?
Shipyard, which has been having real challenges in hiring new workers due to delays at the Pentagon, but mostly from the Office of Personnel Management, and the impact that these policies will have long-term
Oh,
for our
Senator
Navy's
15
ability
is
to
in,
ensure that our
interesting.
nuclear submarines are ready and operating.
Yeah,
The shipyard
yeah.
normally needs to hire about 550 workers a year to keep up with the demand for submarine maintenance. Because of the delays in hiring, next year they're going to need to hire 700 people. That means more time spent on training, less time available for maintenance and operations. That leads to delays. So, can I get a commitment from you, General, that you'll help us to maintain stability and predictability in the hiring process at our public shipyards to avoid these kinds of delays?
Ma'am, extremely important subject, and if confirmed, you have my commitment.
This is probably
Thank you
Doge,
very much.
right?
I know it's something that the Secretary of
Doge
Navy
just
is
randomly
also
cut
very
it
concerned about,
10%
and I
from
raised it with
everything we're
Secretary
watching.
Hegseth at a hearing as well. And I want to also follow up on our conversation about the readiness of the joint force, because since we spoke, the President has authorized military force in the Caribbean Sea. As I'm sure you know from your current position, when the 2 Iwo Jima Amphibious Readiness Group left for its deployment to the Caribbean, the Navy's amphibious fleet was at a 41% readiness rate. That's only half of the rate that the Marines need to complete current missions. General Smith has called that a crisis. Further, the Lake Erie cruiser just left the Indo-Pacific to join the 2 Iwo Jima and 2 destroyers in the Caribbean. The Pentagon has also sent our F-35 stealth fighter jets to Puerto Rico. We've seen the National Guard sent to Washington and active duty Marines sent to Los Angeles in the middle of training for a planned deployment. So the resources are being diverted from deterring the PRC in the Indo-Pacific and maintaining assets needed to respond to crises in other parts of the world. Can you talk about how you see the military
That is something I
responding
always wanted to talk to you about.
compensate for that readiness loss because of those deployments?
Yeah, I've never had the chance to talk to you all about this. Something that.
Any deployment that we go on, any mission
How
that we
many
go on,
amphibious
will
assaults
incur,
do we have, right?
some cost and readiness if you're not training to all of your core mission essential tasks. So it's incumbent first to assess the risk. There's risk in not training.
Iwo
for
Jima
certain
class.
tasks.
It's kind of
Over
so
time,
so
you
so it's
continue not to,
2 American class,
train
7 West
and
class.
we make those assessments in every deployment that we make. So lately we're doing the same thing. 2 techniques that we use and I've used as a commander. We have in-situ
9.
training to make a training plan to mitigate
Iwo
against the
Jima
training we're
class
using, and
is-
we have a rotational plan that we've used on the border and we've used in other places. I used it in combat to bring people off the line
Marine.
and train to other
No,
mission
okay.
essential tasks.
Oh, not US
and then
in the
bring them
Marine
back in,
Corps.
which has been fairly effective.
Thank you.
There's something I wanted to.
Thank
I'll
you,
talk to
Senator.
you about. If you put F-35Bs on an amphibious assault ship, that is now an aircraft carrier.
The nation and for being here in front of us
Holy
today.
Iwo Jima class,
And I want to be consistent. We have
America
discussed
class,
the
and
Spectrum before, but I wanted to bring it up publicly with you.
they are
today.
never armed, right?
I've
With
heard from
F-35s.
30 senior Pentagon officials in public hearings over the last 2.5 years,
9.
including every service chief and 8.
Those are the amphibious assault class, and it doesn't look like.
Vacating the 3.1 to 3.5
It is not big enough.
gigahertz band of the electromagnetic.
It looks- look at the
spectrum
size
has
of the,
significantly negative consequences for our warfighting capabilities. In
Too
fact,
small.
The Department of the Navy previously estimated that relocating their systems to a different spectrum band would cost them $250 billion. Both the Navy and the Marine Corps intend to make extensive
damn
use of
small.
capabilities which require the electromagnetic spectrum to function in the Western Pacific against China. General, does the Joint Force have capabilities operating on the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz band and the 7 and 8 gigahertz bands of the spectrum
Designed to
which
fight
would be
submarines.
used in a conflict with China?
Yes, Senator, we do.
Because right now, every single of our warships is
Negatively impacted if you were forced to vacate those bands or share them with commercial users in a non-optimal manner.
Yes, Senator. they
So
will.
you put an F-35, you mean maintenance cruise for F-35 on this, and
Gentlemen, in my office, we discussed the possibility of the possible near-term threat of a conflict involving multiple adversaries in multiple theaters. Some key observers assess that our adversaries will seek to press their advantage.
mini
given
carrier,
that we are
big
committed
power.
in another
It's
area,
like-
particularly given the increasingly close coordination between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. We've looked at this through the NDAA. You will find.
Oh my God!
mentioned again in
So
this
you
year's
already
NDAA as being proposed. How can we
you are
develop
already listening to what I'm doing,
to
yeah.
maintain
What I told you,
deterrence in multiple
because it's
theaters?
what I
And
would
just
do.
Thinking about it, what's it going to mean in terms of resources, capabilities, and authorities that the Joint Force would need to consider?
They already did it. You guys already
fact
did
that
it in the
this is
past,
a very
so
likely scenario. Should we have an adversary?
there was a lightning carrying compass that
theaters?
yeah, operating. Oh my God, you already did it in 2022, so I need to tell you all in the possibly.
And China and Iran.
Is it actually
Russia,
feasible,
North Korea.
right?
I
Think
think it would
about-
be surprise some people is the depth of that relationship.
You already did it.
that have been going
So
on.
I told you all
So
already
for
in
the
your
state of
past
the Union,
to try
if
this, and
there is a conflict in one area, there may be a reflex or reactive conflict in another. And from the Joint Force, and if confirmed, and to the level of my influence, I'll make sure that we're
because
balanced
F-35Bs can take off from
against
these tiny
those dangerous and most
amphibious
likely courses of
ships,
action
and
should
then
happen. Thank you.
operating 20 F-35s. You're already doing it. USS Tripoli
And
march
similar
through.
advanced manufacturing technologies that will enable deployed forces to
On an
continue
amphibious assault ship,
operations
so compared to
in the face of
19 based on the
contested
sensor.
logistics. If confirmed, will you advocate for adoption and standardization of technologies like
What was the result? I mean,
that will help mitigate the contested logistics problem set for our forward deployed warfighters across the Joint Force?
It did prove. Demonstrate proof that an assault carrier could be lethal addition, provide combat commanders more options to play creative ways, because
components, and I do commit to pushing forward those capabilities to the extent
yeah,
that
but
I can influence.
I mean, it literally
Getting less
is.
forward and having to bring less forward is
Yeah.
an opportunity.
How many
that
F-36s
we,
do the US have?
can go after with advanced manufacturing.
Yeah, the bottom line is if we've got the ability to actually recreate or to repair items without waiting for a supply chain to deliver in a contested
And that is the thing. I mean, think about it, right?
literally saving lives. Should we be
What's the first thing you bomb when you go to the airfield?
Very fair
The
to assume.
the runway. You bomb the runway first. I mean,
I think you are eminently qualified. I think you're right.
we only have a 183. I mean,
Thank you.
Thank you.
because we have refueling units, we can actually fly our F-35As from a long time ago. But what is the first thing you bomb?
I will start
When the
with
war- the
two
runway.
questions that I ask of all
Yeah.
nominations for any of my committees.
Unwanted sexual advance. The answer to sexual is absolutely yes for Andrew. I mean, all the time, literally all the time.
Have you ever made unwanted requests for
Absolutely yes, and all the time, literally all the time.
harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, not sexual assault, but unwanted all the time. Telepathy.
Into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct.
No, that's for Andrew. Andrew absolutely has.
General, successive administrations
It's great,
have
actually.
identified China as the pacing threat to U.S. national security and the Indo-Pacific as the
Yes, you definitely do,
priority
Andrew, yeah.
theater. I am concerned about recent reporting that the draft national defense
We only have
strategy
182, so not enough to.
the challenge
'Cause it meant 20.
posed by China and refocuses on the homeland and Western.
We do not have enough F-35Bs for this concept to mass, so
China,
not yet.
North Korea, India,
each other, China being the country with the most resources. So we're seeing this happening. And at the same time,
They are.
it's very concerning that we're going to turn our face away from in the Pacific area in
Are
view
we?
of these relationships that appear to be quite obvious. So what is your best military advice on this proposed shift? And what risks would deprioritizing China in the Indo-Pacific pose on U.S. national security?
Senator, the way I would answer that is I think from 2018 NDS to the 2022 NDS and to the International Defense Strategic Guidance, there's been fairly
Totally forgot what I was
putting
going to-
Homeland as the foundation of our strategy. But they have all been consistent as well as focusing on the Indo-Pacific, and I can't see a meaningful change or shift away from that, having not seen the
Bush.
final version of the NDS. I'm an old budget guy, so if you follow the investments and follow the programs, I think you will see across the services a keen focus on the Indo-PACOM theater for good reason.
Yeah.
So your
Well,
position would
it's been an honor if I die. I'm
be
just like,
advisor to President
if I die,
Trump's
y'all gonna have to
resolution
fight China
priorities.
and
So as far
US
as
all by
your
yourself.
concern from what I'm hearing you say just now, that we should continue to focus on the Indo-Pacific as a major AOR.
Very,
I think,
who's the area of
and I think you will see that borne out when the final version of the NDS comes out. And in your conversations between you and
Yeah, I was
I,
thinking.
would understand that the pacing threat is communist China.
Yeah, because they have the
You know, China
much better weapons.
is very active in the Indo-Pacific area, putting out its resources and its tentacles with the island nations there,
AOR
as
was-
other countries. So I think we should be
Area
continue to
of-
pay attention. And I do agree with Admiral Pomporo's
area
recent
of
comments,
R? What R?
earlier this week, where he said the homeland is in the Pacific.
Area
That's
of
why
review? What
CNMI,
is it?
our compact partners, needs to be prioritized.
Area of
You
responsibility.
can ask a number of questions about J-Rock as the sort of the new way that we're going to deal with the needs of the joint forces. And we've already been, as I mentioned, asked
Yeah, I don't
questions.
know,
And
man.
I would appreciate, as I mentioned when I met with you, that you provide comments to us
Sorry.
regarding any authorities you need in the final NDAA to deliver critical capabilities to the joint forces at speed and scale, particularly to support our
Well, of
warfighters
course, yeah.
in the Indo-Pacific.
The best way to push it is actually not getting into war in the first place.
In the generation of the NDA this year and the report that we've just got done with the NDA last year, we're on the road to real reform. I think that there is an opportunity here.
Not going to war in the first place would be actually great. Yeah, not going to war in the first place would be actually great, actually.
Yeah, I do want to mention that about foreign assistance. There have been major cuts. USAID has set out to foreign assistance, and it is not as though is it your view that a strong military is what we need, the only thing we need to have peace in our world, or is it important to you that we maintain our ability to provide foreign aid and those kinds of relationships as being just as important? The diplomatic aspects of what we do as a leading nation is just as important as the strong military.
Senator, I believe as
Well-
a country we have many tools that we use, and we should use all of them.
Including
Well, I got a question. I mean,
All the tools, man, yes.
so we cut off all our aid for medicine and food. The Chinese, have the
Okay, my time
Chinese?
is up. Thank
Should,
you.
how about we do this, right? Have the Chinese give us them food and medicine, and we give the people weapons. Let's do it the other way, right?
Senator, I've been going
I mean, because right now what we do is we give people in Africa food and medicine, and the Chinese give the bad guys AK-47, and then they take over the country, and then the Chinese rule that country. What do we do the other way? Have the Chinese give them food and medicine, and America, through the CIA or through the army, give the good guys weapons, and then America gives people weapons, and then the people with the guns are in charge of the country. And so, I mean, wouldn't that work better? Because that's what they're doing. We give people food and weapons. I mean, food and medicine, and then China and Russia give the bad guys weapons.
The soft power
Then
that
and
we have used through USAID is
does absolutely nothing, basically.
of,
Does absolutely
of
nothing.
our national defense strategy. Is that correct?
I think we need to ask a little question.
The COCOMs to make a
I know, right?
statement.
Reality. What is
Like I said,
reality?
Among all our tools, we need to use all of them.
Very carefully. I mean, think about it. Yeah, I mean,
Senator Scott.
because seriously, I mean, Senator Ronaldo says is basically bad mouthing President Trump that we're cutting aid. We need to ask some questions because the Chinese and the Russian thinks we're fucking idiots, basically. We give them food and medicine, and they give the bad guys guns, and the bad guys with the guns win, and then they get to control the country. So
Decisions, they must first be approved by the Secretary
Yeah.
of State.
somebody's got to figure this out. And
Can you speak to how you would advise Pentagon leadership on where and why Section 333 funding is needed and how this funding provides a
This
return
one I
on
need to
tax
go talk
dollars?
to him, so.
Or do you completely agree that we ought to completely phase it out?
Well,
Less,
there's the-
if confirmed, I would look less at the code and I would look more at what the effect of that
That's
code
good.
is and is it covered by something else?
Yeah.
And strike a balance between removing something and the requirement to make sure that it is covered. So
I mean, the reason I'm watching this is because there's a press conference in the future where some of the
I think
senators in this
we're seeing
one,
whether it's from defense spending and 5%.
they're gonna try to
most
get
of it,
sanctions on
I think they
Russia.
are.
So
From a military standpoint, I will tell you, I think they are.
the president get to make decisions.
So
about
it was in March, I traveled to Denmark, Estonia, and Finland, and all three of those countries for sure are stepping up. Finland has been doing it for a long time,
Yeah.
as we all know. They've got a pretty over 1,000-mile border with Russia, and they've always
Yeah.
been ready.
I have no idea how long.
So
So damn.
almost 20% of their entire population is ready to mobilize within days if there was an invasion across their border.
You know,
So one of the things they complained about though was our foreign military sales program. Number one, they don't understand why it takes so long to get a decision. And then number two, even after the decision's made, they're still struggling to get the equipment from American manufacturers. Can you talk about what you could do in this role to improve the military sales process and help our manufacturers get more produced and get it over to our allies when they want to buy something?
Sarah, I'm not directly, should I be confirmed as a vice, I wouldn't be directly involved with FMS, but what you key on, I think a big part of the sclerotic system that you describe in FMS is the defense industrial base and the ability to produce at speed. So to the extent that I can influence the relationship of our requirements, acquisition with the defense industrial base, I will do that.
sporadic means having sclerosis, having
Do you feel comfortable that
becoming rigid, unresponsive. Oh, that is absolutely.
any military supplies?
That's just like it's. Oh wow.
I don't believe
Multiple,
that we should
it's
rely on China.
sclerosis and cirrhotic,
China,
rigid and unresponsive.
by buying things of a military nature.
So what do you think about the Department of War buying a significant portion of the drugs from China?
Oh man,
I'm not.
that is a problem,
I'm
right?
not a senator, but as a concept,
Off the top of
it's
your
not.
head.
It's not a good idea.
That's
So you
that's
think
what
our-
the
you
president
think
was trying to do.
Our Wall Street should be continuing to fund companies that help the Chinese build their military?
I
Well,
don't believe that we should engage in activities.
Ray Dolly talked about that when you.
Bankroll systems that we'll find on
Yeah.
the front in Ukraine, or that we'll find in UAVs out of Iran, or that we'll find.
I mean, that is
DMZ.
something that Nancy Pelosi was talking about in the
So
1990s
any
about
reliance we have on Chinese
well,
equipment, whether it's our ports or whether it's our computer systems, whether it's our communications infrastructure, you think we probably ought to walk away from
I
Chinese
know,
producers,
right?
I think we should assess the risk and then make the appropriate adjustments. Yes, Senator.
I mean, I think Senator Scott is saying something that
Thank you very much, Senator Rose.
should have listened to Nancy Pelosi in the
Thank you, Chairman
1990s,
Wicker,
basically.
Ranking
Yeah.
Member Reed, for holding this
We,
hearing.
I mean, President Obama talks about all the time. We lifted 1 billion Chinese people out of poverty, but the cost is They did not take that money
I
to
want to talk a little bit about documenting
go with,
exposure at classified locations.
yeah.
Because I asked General Kane at his confirmation hearing about documenting exposure at data mask locations where the duty station
hold
and
on a
its
second.
existence are classified. That ensures, I want to ensure that service members' records accurately reflect service-connected injuries at those locations.
I don't remember when I stopped
served at
thinking.
such locations within the Nevada Test and
No, I saw the whole
Training
thing. I think.
Range who believe they
Yeah.
were exposed to radiation from our days of conducting explosive nuclear weapons testing and to burn pits which dispose of classified waste. However, as I've explained before this
You know.
committee many times, DOD does not classify the range as a place where exposure has occurred, despite the
Sure, I saw the whole
Department of
thing.
Energy providing
Did I saw the whole
presumption of
thing?
exposure for
No, I
air
didn't.
personnel
According
who
to
served at these
August
exact
21st, there's something.
locations within the range. And because their service records are data masked, these veterans can't even prove to the VA that they were ever even stationed there. I know you know.
Crap,
that
I did not. I
Nevada
mean,
specifically.
I will be back.
So, General, I'm very thankful the Senate version of
I don't remember.
the
So,
includes
so
my provisions to begin
20 days
addressing
ago,
this
I
issue,
thought I saw
but we need
something.
senior Pentagon leadership to help us see it through.
Secretary of
So, if
Defense.
confirmed, will you commit to working with me and this committee to ensure that the department provides
Well,
a
I'm pretty
presumption
sure
of
I
exposure
saw.
for relevant locations, such as those which the
Well, that's
Department
bad.
of Energy, well, they've already done so for their personnel. We can just follow
So-
what they're doing, and we want to ensure that those who served, and of course are currently serving, at these data mask sites receive sufficient documentation to support their health-related
What was I
claims
doing?
while protecting the classified nature of their service.
Senator, I commit.
Oh, I
to working with
mean,
you. I will
crap, I didn't write down. I don't
intimately
remember.
familiar with the issue, but
I remember
if
talking to
confirmed,
General
we'll
Kane
assess that
about it.
and come back to you. Just as a statement, we owe all the members high quality health care, irrespective of where they may have
History.
served or what they did. That's an expectation when they come in to serve this country.
Thank
Because
you. I
that's
look
just-
forward to setting up that meeting to talk about the data mask
Oh man,
locations.
this is
I
bad.
want to move on to cybersecurity and resiliency because as a former computer programmer, systems analyst,
I do not remember. I
have a
thought I saw
deep
the whole thing,
appreciation for
but
how critical cyber and technology are to our national defense. As vice chairman, you'll be responsible for leading the development of the national military strategy.
shit.
So how do you see cyber fitting into that strategy, both as a warfighting domain, as an enabler for joint
What was
operations
happening on the
both land,
21st that
sea,
was
air,
dramatic?
and space as a warfighting domain?
Senator, I'm not a cyber
Mm.
expert, but as I said in my opening statement,
Let's see, somebody's.
cyber is as this mysterious
What was happening on the 21st?
domain apart. It can no longer be treated that way. The more that we use
Saw that one. That was first.
technology and transport it through many different means, we have to have ability to harden and protect it, and we need to have the ability to go on offense as well in the cyber world.
Well, speaking of that, and building maybe on Senator Scott as well.
What was I talking to you about on 21st? Why was
in the national military strategy? We got to keep
Didn't
pace
see
with
that
our
one.
adversaries like China
Mm-hmm.
and Russia for sure. Do you have any off the top of your head or?
I'll just go back on my recent experience as kind of the Uber requirements guy in the Marine Corps. Every program that deals with digital technology, that
Talking
transfers
about-
digital technology, that stores it, has to have a level of
I did not
cyber
remember.
protection, cyber hardening.
But how do you balance
Oh, I know
balance
why.
between traditional
Well, call me daddy on the
and
21st now. That's
cyber,
why.
cyberspace writ large. We'll say.
Well, first, Senator, I don't think it's a choice. I think it's something that we have to invest in going in.
That's the
When I talked
thing.
about
Armed
fully
service
encumbered
coming Air
cost
Forces.
of attritable drones, the fully encumbered cost. of
That one I
the
totally
program
saw,
has to
that's for sure.
include, the cyber aspect and cyber hardening.
And last thing, I just
Oh,
want
I
to
remember why now.
the strategy addressing
August
integrating
21st,
cyber with our allies,
Iran's at
especially
war.
the
That's why
To say allies and
that's what I
partners
was
as part of our
briefing.
strategy, cyber is an organic part of how
Crap.
we do business, so it needs to be an organic part of our strategy.
Thank you, I yield.
That's what I was doing. I remember why I was in traumatic. Because 21st was when
Congratulations.
August 21st. Now that makes so much more sense.
Senator Rosen's, talk
I've been looking over my
direction we're headed. Future conflicts will be dominated by artificial intelligence,
Yes.
emerging technologies like quantum computing.
Jesus Christ. I mean,
Basically, two quantum computing models, gate and annealing,
basic
press conference, and then
do you think that's a smart way to handle this?
17 while the war was going
Artificial
on,
intelligence,
telling about Taylor Swift and
derived systems are again, if cyber has just become part of the normal warfighting domain, artificial intelligence.
I do not
is too
remember if
far.
I saw this whole thing
We
with
don't need to look too far to see how it's
trying to
being
remember.
applied,
I think
especially in the Russia-Ukraine example. We have to bring that in and make it a normal part of our programmatics.
Thank you. Let's go to a more simple topic here. I'm getting calls all the time. You know, we've spent trillions of dollars on these wars over the years. But we can't house our people
美国
on military bases. We have mold, roofs are falling in, kids are getting sick, but we can spend hundreds of billions of dollars
This is today,
on another country.
earlier today.
Will you commit to help?
Senator Tuberville, I think it's probably
It is a huge problem, probably in recruiting. and
Tuberville is
getting
Senator
our brains off.
Katie Britz or something. I don't know.
Senator, I commit to you to do just that. And I'll go over my recent experience. with
Confirmation for
Commandant's
Vice Chair of
emphasis
Joint
on
Chiefs
our Barracks 2030 initiative. We're unapologetic about the investments
Vice
that we
Joint
made over
Chiefs
the
of
last 20
Staff.
years 'cause
It's
we're
like
fighting.
the
We have to
general
get
in
back
charge
into
of.
the installations resilience
They're
business.
trying
We have
to.
get back
Vice,
into the
yes.
Installations quality business. Two primary
Testimony, yeah.
reasons. First, it's an expectation among
That's a good question. Why is the vice chair doing that?
to have a
I think
good
there's somebody else, and then
infrastructure
confirmation's taking a long time. So
Secondly, we have to look at it
Some-
for what it is, which is
Yeah,
a
there
power
probably is.
projection platform, and we have to invest in that center.
Big investment in our souls. I think that's what a lot of them are looking for. Recently, Secretary Hicks directed the dismantling of the Joint Capability Integration and Development System. This is core of a slow and heavily bureaucratic acquisition process. In your role as Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, this change will largely be your responsibility. How will you ensure this rapid and agile system provides combat capabilities to the warfighter and allows us to keep pace with our adversaries?
Senator,
Yeah,
you
there's-
hit it right on the head, and if confirmed as the chairman of the JROC, then part of the reform process, my goal, one of my goals and priorities will be to make sure that we have end-to-end systems treatment of requirements to meaningful resources, and with acquisition built into that. So if it's 3 gears moving, they all need to be engaged with each other, and you can only move at the slowest gear. We need to quicken all those gears, requirements, acquisition, resources, and sync with them so that we get a good product. As chairman of the JROC, if confirmed, we used to say cost, schedule, and performance as the 3 parameters that we would look at a program. I think we ought to move it to schedule or speed, cost, and performance. And I will make that a priority soon.
Great. Sounds like you have a plan. Organization is key to winning, and you seem to be up on that. You know, one of the many things the United States Marine Corps does better than any other service is the ability to pass an audit. While not directly responsible for an audit, what lessons do you bring from the Marine Corps that will help the Department of War achieve a clean audit for the first time in many years?
Senator, you already said, organization is the key to victory. I'm very proud of the fact that
Yeah.
the Marine Corps has had 2 clean opinions. You heard it here first. We'll have a 3rd one. And to the extent that I can influence it, I will press to move the department along in coming out of disclaimer and getting a clean audit.
Thank you. Thank you for service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville. Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, thank you for visiting me, and thank you for your profoundly impressive service over so many years in the United States Marine Corps. We're here at a really historic moment, not only because we're commemorating 9/11, but there has been literally an attack on a NATO nation by Russia in its brazenly violating Polish airspace with a number of drones, a direct incursion into the sovereign territory of that NATO member state by an autocrat who has played the United States, has mocked American power, and stalled and stonewalled our president.
Yeah.
I hope that you agree with me that now is the time that the United States has to show strength against Putin by reacting offensively in the great tradition of the Marine Corps against this unprecedented and extraordinary step of sending Russian drones into Poland.
Senator, I believe that we need to remain strong in all eventualities. This being one of them. If the Russians meant to do it, it was provocative. If they didn't mean to do it, it's an indication of incompetence. At any rate, I think what we're seeing is the Poles, the Polish armed forces, from their increase in defense spending to their increase in capability, being emblematic of that balance that we need to do just what you say, to stand up against the irredentist Russia.
Don't you
That
find it
is-
inconceivable
That
that
is so weird.
this incursion was unintentional? There were so many drones, and they were sent at the same time over a long period of
Oh
time.
my God.
The
That
same
is,
time period.
From a military perspective, sir,
That
my
is an
assessment
amazing-
based on what I know is that it looks more intentional than not. Once again, if it wasn't, there's some significant incompetence there.
I hope that you will join me and others on this committee in demanding that our nation and our European allies increase our military aid for Ukraine so that it can resist this kind of aggression and slaughter, and heightened economic sanctions against the nations that are fueling Russia's war machine by buying Putin's oil and gas. I'm talking about India, China, Brazil. The best way to achieve peace, wouldn't you agree, is to show strength by passing the bill. It's the Graham-Blumenthal bill that would impose scorching sanctions on those nations that are, in effect, enabling Russia to continue this trend.
Go to the
Sarah, I prefer to stay in my military lane and just say that should I be confirmed, part of my job would be to provide options for the use of power against eventualities most dangerous and most likely. And this case would be no exception.
Well, this conversation obviously will not end here, and I look forward to continuing it with you, General, when you are confirmed, and I will support your confirmation. I'm very impressed by your background. Let me just ask you finally, we've received reports that the Secretary of Defense, or the Secretary of War, as he now calls himself, means for the Department of Defense to focus more on law enforcement, state and local law enforcement, and that he's issued policy directives within the Pentagon to that effect. Are you aware of those policy directives or a planned strategy paper?
In my current job as Senator, I'm not aware of that. I am not aware of any directive of that nature.
Thank you very
Lead on the
much.
Marine Corps side.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to kind of pick up on that and zoom in a little bit and then zoom out. Fort Leonard Wood, which I'm sure you're familiar with, in the great state of Missouri, has a lot of land and has a number of missions, including training our military police, and has also been the home of the Army's criminal investigative training, special agent training efforts. So it's well positioned. After the One Big Beautiful Bill was passed, and we've got these resources out there for border enforcement to help train ICE agents. That is completely, by the way, in line with what the military can do. They're not performing a law enforcement function, but rather sharing their knowledge with agents who are charged with enforcing our laws. And by the way, that didn't used to be controversial. Bill Clinton deported a lot of people. Barack Obama deported a lot of people. And in your role, and your knowledge of Fort Leonard Wood, do you think it can play a role in kind of surge training ICE agents for the important functions that they have?
Senator, I've been to Fort Leonard Wood a few times in my prior life as a counter IED officer. I'm not aware of those functions that you discuss or the capacity there too.
We'd love to get you out there. There's a lot of land and a lot of capabilities, so we're just sort of putting a marker down, and I love trying to persuade, so maybe we'll continue our conversations. The second issue, I guess, is sort of zooming out now. I wanted to ask about, as relates to the Indo-Pacific. In your view, what do you find is what do you see as the greatest disconnect between our strategic goals in the Indo-Pacific and our actual force posture and readiness?
You've got a very capable and brilliant commander out there in Admiral Paparo, and he has aligned function, posture with the strategy, not only national strategy, but here's his theater strategy. I feel as a military man, as the assistant commandant of the Marine Corps, where we commit forces out there, I'm very happy currently with the posture of the Marine Corps pursuant to Admiral Paparo's strategy.
Okay. Well, I think as we talk about a lot of the discussion is in Europe. We talk about a lot of pivoting to Asia. I would just ask that as you kind of dig into this new role, whatever deficiencies or disconnects or misalignment might exist, to try to work with the committee, our office specifically, we want to be helpful in that regard, because this is the future. This is the great competition, and if we're looking forward, China is our greatest adversary. It is now, and will be presumably for the next century. And then related to that, China's moving rapidly to develop their own carrier force. How do you see the delaying of the F/A-XX? To me, is a real problem. How do you see delaying that project impacting our ability to compete with them?
I think what we have to do is keep our eye on the capabilities that we need. We need longer range, deeper penetration, and better sensors. To the extent that F/A-XX would fill that void, we need to look at that very closely.
Yeah, well, I would argue that it does. So we'll work with you on that too. And then finally, on sort of recruitment, which is going really well, which is, I think, one of the great positives of the first 250 days or so of this current administration. I want to just ask you, as far as long-term retention, how can we or should we be incentivizing service members to continue their careers, who's, they're reaching a point where they may want to extend it or not. In your view, in your experience, what are some of the things that we can do to make it more attractive?
I think all the services are having a very, very good year on the accession side. I can't speak to the other services as far as retention, but for the Marine Corps side, we're almost at historic levels of retention. And some of the keys that we use to that are an incentive structure. Some of the keys are bonuses. Some of the keys are lateral moves, but it's meeting the quality talent on their terms and asking the question of not why you're getting out, but how can we make you stay?
Thank you. Look forward to working with you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Mahoney, great to see you here today, and thank you for your years of service. As you know, Exercise Northern Strike in Michigan helps train thousands of service members from over 20 different countries at the National All-Domain Warfighting Center. Northern Strike takes advantage of roughly 17,000 square miles of special use and all-domain training environments for kind of realistic joint force training with our global allies and partners. In his hearing before our committee, Admiral Paparo, the Indo-PACOM commander, praised Northern Strike's importance to his command, and he said, I want to quote him because it was great. He said, quote, I treasure it and I want more of it and I want to expand it, end of quote. So my question for you, sir, is do you agree with Admiral Paparo's assessment of the importance of exercises like Northern Strike in Michigan? And what role should these exercises play in advancing DoD's strategic goals in the Indo-Pacific?
From big to small, I know that the training area up there facilitates some great interaction of live training. I believe there's some virtual connectivity there as well. Speaking for the Marine Corps, we had our Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Company up there, and V-22s also participating. And it is a great workout, in particular for the reserve and some guard. I have not been on deployment. I haven't been in a command operations center. I haven't been in support of a unit where the guard and the reserves didn't play a big part. So Northern Strike, not only for the quality of the training, but the demographic of combat power that it deals with is extremely important.
Great. Well, thank you, General. General, as you know, the AUKUS agreement is a once-in-a-generation partnership between Australia, the UK, and the US to share nuclear-powered submarine technology, as well as to enhance technology collaboration between these three allies. I was fortunate to recently visit Australia, and I was impressed not only with their cutting-edge work on unmanned technologies, but also their unwavering national commitment to the AUKUS agreement. As someone who has extensively studied a potential conflict in the Indo-Pacific, I believe that you will agree that our key advantage in the region is our long-term relationships with allies and partners, which includes AUKUS. And so my question for you, sir, is how important is AUKUS in deterring Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific? And if confirmed, would you continue to support this critical agreement?
Senator, I'll stay away from the policy side of AUKUS and just look at the potential on the military side. I have lived in Australia. I went to school in Australia. I've trained extensively with the Australians and fought with the Australians. We will not find a more capable ally and someone who has been leaning into capabilities and capacities that can only help us in the region and help us in countering Communist China.
Well, as you know, there are two pillars to AUKUS. The one that tends to get most of the attention is the agreement with submarines, Virginia-class submarines that are coming online. But I would argue Pillar 2 is equal, if not more important, which deals with advanced technologies, emerging technologies, unmanned. The programs they have like Ghost Shark and Ghost Bat, and whether in the air or undersea, are really, we have the opportunity to explore some of those endeavors, and they're incredibly impressive. Could you talk a little bit about Pillar 2 and being someone very familiar with Australia, how their capabilities will advance our ability to fight the war of the future?
To the extent that Pillar 2 will enhance our military interconnectedness, our ability to integrate and move all of those capabilities that you just talked about forward, it is a great initiative. And like I said, I have not worked in a place with the Australians where they haven't been leading forward and always willing and quite skilled, in fact, at moving capabilities forward, sometimes outpacing us.
Great. Thank you, General. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And today is a solemn day of remembrance. So thank you very much, General, for remembering those that lost their lives on 9/11, as well as those first responders and those that have served in the global war on terrorism. Thanks for the time that we were able to spend together in the office discussing a number of priorities. I'd like to start with the announcement of the pending National Defense Strategy. What it is doing is making clear that defending the homeland is the department's top priority. And that includes protecting our critical infrastructure, strengthening, of course, our missile defenses, and enhancing our cyber resilience. Those will really be at the forefront of our efforts. And in this mission, it does appear that the National Guard and the reserves will be an indispensable part of that equation. We know that these forces are uniquely positioned to defend the homeland, not only through disaster response, but also in emerging domains like cyber and space. And of course, I'm very partial to the National Guard and the reserves, having served in both of those. I know firsthand how vital it is in their contributions to our national defense. So, General Mahoney, with the upcoming National Defense Strategy placing that renewed emphasis on our homeland defense, how do you plan to ensure that the mission remains front and center as threats continue to grow and evolve?
Thanks, Senator. And I think the primacy of the homeland has been a key tenet of our strategies going back at least as far as 2018. And I think it has to be that way. The military reason that it needs to be that way is it must be considered as a power projection platform. You can't push off a platform that is faulty. You can't push off a foundation that is weak. And all of the attributes that you talked about have to be strengthened and fortified. Going to the Guard and Reserve, as I mentioned earlier, I have never been in a situation deployed or otherwise or contingent of combat where Guardsmen and reserves weren't a big part of the picture. So to strengthen that aspect of it, not only for the homeland, but to play the away game as well is important.
No, I appreciate that very much, and just reminding people that the reason our great United States came to be, the reason our colonies came together as states and formed the great United States of America was for the common defense of our nation. So it's incredibly important that our military is positioned to defend our homeland. What role do you envision for the National Guard and our great reservists out there as they're playing a role in building a resilience against these threats, both here in the homeland and abroad?
I don't think you can realistically talk about an integrated joint approach without bringing in the Guard and Reserve, and recent history is replete with that point. So what I would say is, even by, I know that statutorily and policy-wise there is a differentiation between Guard, Reserve, and Active. But when we look at the total force, the integrated force, and Chairman Kane as the integrator, this is a whole. This is a single demographic of combat power. Once again, whether it's at home or away.
Yeah, thank you. We have talked extensively this morning about the Defense Industrial Base and its revitalization. That is really important in order to deliver upon the safety for our great United States. We have to make sure that we have the platforms and the munitions that are available. So I'm just going to make a plug. We have facilities in Iowa, like the Iowa Army Ammunition Plant, which will be an important part of delivering munitions for our military. Also, the Rock Island Arsenal, which is situated, it actually belongs to Illinois, but is situated in the Mississippi River, dividing Iowa and Illinois, making sure that we're able to expand production and support those facilities will be very important in the future. So how do you plan to ensure that that industrial base can meet the demand for these critical systems while also sustaining support for our allies? In a very brief answer, please.
If confirmed as the chairman of the JROC, I will make sure that the Defense Industrial Base is a leading consideration from requirements to resources.
And I will take it. I have no time remaining. Thank you very much. I look forward to supporting your confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ernst. I'm glad you drilled down on the Guard and the Reserve. Senator Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to begin by associating myself with comments of my colleagues earlier in the hearing. First, Senator Wicker, I appreciate you having a moment of silence in honor of those who lost lives or family on 9/11. The attack occurred in Virginia and other locations, and also for your moment of silence to think about political violence. I did not know Mr. Kirk, but I think many of my Senate colleagues did, and some considered him an acquaintance and some considered him a friend. And so I offered prayers for his family and the university community yesterday, but as I'm sitting here looking at colleagues who may have known him, I know how devastating it was to our colleagues, Senator Klobuchar and Senator Smith, when their friends were killed a couple months back. And so I feel for my colleagues, anybody in this body who knew, friends with, acquaintance with Mr. Kirk. It's just so sad. There have been 300 instances of political violence in this country since January 6th. We have a colleague, Senator Kelly, whose life was dramatically changed. We have a colleague, Congressman Scalise, whose life was dramatically changed by political violence. And those of us on this committee who travel around the world and interact with leaders, they kind of look at us as like, this is who you are. We don't really think it's who we are, but it's becoming so common. And we have to figure out a way out of it. I don't have any answers, but I'm very troubled this morning in the aftermath of it. I want to thank Senator Reid for raising the questions that you raised about the Venezuela strike. The idea of the framers that we should not be engaged in military action without Congress, they came up with that idea when George Washington was the president. They had a president they revered who was a great military leader, and yet they didn't think the decision about use of military force in hostility should be dependent upon one person. And we have yet to get answers about some critical aspects of the attack. And the decision to interdict versus attack is really important, because interdiction often gets you evidence that you can then use to prosecute or go after the higher ups or the kingpins. And so we still don't have an understanding of why there was an attack rather than an interdiction. Many of my colleagues have joined me in a letter seeking answers to those questions, and I hope we'll get them. And finally, I want to associate myself with Senator Blumenthal and the sanctions bill that's currently on the table before us that has overwhelming bipartisan support. I can understand a desire to pause action on that while we would seek some resolution with Russia and Ukraine. But during the pause, what we've seen is Russian aggression grow in Ukraine, against EU offices in Ukraine, and now against Poland. And I agree with you, General Mahoney, whether it was intentional, which I think it likely was, or unintentional, which would raise a whole set of other troubling questions. I do believe there needs to be a response from the administration and from this body. Well, let me ask you this, General Mahoney. You're very well qualified for the position. I support your nomination. I appreciated our visit. The press is reporting that the DoD is going to send its reconciliation spending plan to Congress sometime in September. Do you have any information here today about the status of that plan and when we will likely see it?
I don't have any specific information on that, Senator. I know as the Uber budget guy in the Marine Corps, we put our spend plan together and submitted it. I do not know when it will be delivered.
The reconciliation bill called for it by August 22. I'm not completely surprised that it was not to us by then, because this is a big amount of money and we want to make sure we spend it the right way. But I do hope we get it soon, so that in response to Senator Wicker's questions, I know you'll make sure we execute on the plan, but we're very interested in the plan here. I want to ask you, General Mahoney, you've often been before our readiness subcommittee in earlier iterations. I want to ask you some readiness questions. How will you think about assessing readiness across the joint force, especially when it comes to preparedness for executing O-plans?
And I think we might have discussed this in readiness. There is the man, train, and equip aspect of it that the services own, and then there is the exercises versus O-plan that are primarily owned by the COCOMs. I think the chairman, as the integrator, also has an exercise flow where he brings all those things together to work out the entire joint force end to end, whether it's versus a specific O-plan or scenario, or whether it's through derived scenarios as well. So it looks like a pyramid from the services going up to the chairman as the global integrator.
I'll just say, as I hand back, readiness of joint enablers like strategic lift, contested logistics, communications networks, very important, especially in Indo-PACOM. I know you're aware of that. The fact that you've done so much work in Indo-PACOM already, I think, is going to stand you in a good place.
I believe that's why the chairman's role as the global integrator is so important, because of those enablers that may not exist on a magenta line that defines a COCO.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Sheehy.
Morning, General. Congratulations on your nomination. Great to speak with you the other day at the Marine Corps Welcome Back reception. Culture, warfighting, recruiting, those are your job. Those are Secretary Hegseth's job. As I expressed to you, my core concern is our ability to fill the magazines, build the ships, maintain the planes, and ensure that when our warfighters go toe-to-toe with our next adversary, they have the platforms that they need. In a 21st century warfare, as we're seeing, is inherently a platform warfare environment. And right now, our platform capabilities, although exquisite on the drawing board and exquisite in the test range, it's hard to scale them, they're expensive, and they're hard to replace. And my sole focus on this committee right now is to ensure that the next time we face off with an adversary, and we have holes in the bottom of the ocean, and we have parachutes coming out of cockpits because planes are being shot down, we have the ability to have a force that's attritable, that's replaceable, scalable, and that can be done quickly in a battlefield time frame. So right now, we have a shipbuilding industry that has become sclerotic. Our ability to scale those and stabilize requirements to produce ships repeatedly, quickly, is challenged. That can also be carried over to our aircraft manufacturing capability. What are going to be there's been studies and op-eds and articles and hearings about this ad nauseum for years, and we've been talking about it, but nothing has really changed fundamentally, and the time for change is now. But we can't continue to have commissions and studies and papers and reports and McKinsey and Rand and every other consulting company comes in and gives us a 1,000-page report of how to fix it. We need to start fixing it. It needs to start now. So what is your day one, week one, year one plan to begin fixing this industrial base challenge so that we're ready for the next war?
Senator, thanks, and thanks for the time in your office. I've been on the JROC now for about 2 years, and some of the smartest people on the planet do the analysis, do the gap analysis, the capability portfolio management reviews. What we need to do is make sure that is done in time that we have yet to consider. 800 days, not good. So there's a time aspect to it, and then there's a step change that needs to happen once you go from a solution identification to bringing industry in. And in my opening comments, I said all of industry. We've been glued to, and in some cases rightfully so, a small group of vendors that have come down from a larger group in the past, and we need to invite we need to invite different, more innovative and fast-moving companies into the acquisition process earlier. That is the only way, I believe, that we're going to see the step change that we require. So lower the barriers to entry, incentivize these companies to come in, engender competition, which will engender speed, which will engender product, greater capabilities and greater quality. And from day one of the JROC, I'll pick up where Admiral Grady left off and push those lines of effort forward. And I don't want to run on here too much, but I said earlier, the requirements to resources continue, the system, the gears that run. We have to keep an eye on that from the beginning to the end, or one of the gears will be coming disengaged, or it'll start running slow, and we'll be back where we started. One other point. The gold-plated in 800 days is not sufficient when we can get the operationally relevant in a very short period of time. It's, like the acquisition Pareto principle. Let's get the 80% solution in 20% of the time at 20% of the cost, instead of 100% 800 days later at some astronomical cost that we can neither afford or control.
I agree with that 100%. And when it comes to the Navy, I'd rather have 100 frigates than 5 destroyers. And we need to accept risk again in our acquisition process. In an effort to reduce risk, we've created a process that's focused on the process, not on the outcome. We need to accept iteration as part of it. Except that each iteration is not going to be perfect, and we'll continue to refine that product. But gold-plated requirements and engineering to perfection will create a brittleness in our acquisition process that is going to remove the scale of speed that we need. So thank you for your focus on that. You have my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Schmidt. Thank you, Senator Cheney. I know you, and I can see that far. But not much further. I think Senator Slotkin is next. Is that you down there? Yes, okay.
Thank you, Chairman. General Mahoney, welcome. Thank you for being here, particularly on a solemn day. This was my first anniversary of 9/11 in the Senate, and I was heartened to hear the sirens go off this morning at the exact times that the planes hit, and to hear there was a voice that came over, I think, the entire campus, noting that there had been a plane headed for this building on that day. So I thought that was an important reminder. You are nominated to be the number 2, the vice chairman. So that means you will be the number 2 in the country military advisor to the President of the United States. Our troops are intended by law to protect against foreign adversaries and to never advance the interest of one political party or their political agenda. That's one of the things I think we can agree on that separates us from a place like China. You will have that responsibility of giving best military advice, but also, as we discussed in my office, representing the interests of the military and the reputation of the military, which I know you've given your life to. I mean, you've done incredible service for this institution that, as we discussed, really raised you to be the 4-star general that you are. You're also coming from being the assistant commandant to the Marine Corps, and that means you oversaw the 700 Marines that deployed to LA along with the National Guard without the consent of the governor out there in June and July. And according to a DoD report that came out through Reuters, it was a document that said, entitled Los Angeles Civil Unrest Standing Rules for the Use of Force. And it stated, quote, that the very nature of domestic operations, American military forces operating in U.S. communities, has such significant implications that the mistakes of a few soldiers can have far-reaching social, political, and operational effects. And the document cites a cautionary tale of Marine Corporal Clemente Benuelos, who many years ago was on a joint mission in 1997 in Texas and saw a high schooler with a rifle. The high schooler was herding goats and ended up killing that high schooler. Can you walk me through, you're now wanting to be the number 2 military advisor to the president. What issues did you raise when you got the order to send 700 Marines? What concerns did you have? What did you sort of push and pull in that conversation to make sure to protect both civilians but the reputation of the military?
Senator, thanks. And when that order came down, our discussion was, how do we accomplish the mission? And are we trained, manned, and equipped for it? And that discussion went on very seriously from the commandant right on down to the company commanders that we're going to go forward. I will tell you that we trained to the standing rules of the use of force. We trained the de-escalation techniques. We trained on the personal protective equipment, which I would expect of Marines to do before they left the assembly area. And I will tell you that the deepest conversation and the deepest concern with making sure that those Marines were ready to execute orders professionally with those battalion commanders and those company commanders to talk about reputation of the cloth. They would not step forward across the line of departure until they were manned, trained, and equipped to accomplish the mission that they have been given.
So if you were asked, now the president talks about sending troops to other places, if you were asked to change the rules of engagement to include arrest, detention of American citizens, hot pursuit, instead of tag teaming with law enforcement, you were asked to change those rules of engagement so that the U.S. military would be engaging in what I believe to be unlawful actions in the streets of America, would you push back on that or other illegal orders that contravene the Constitution?
Before I go too far down the hypothetical here, which is reasonable, my best military judgment in my position now, or should I be confirmed, will be based on the facts and circumstances and the tasks that we've been given and the effect that we're trying to achieve and the training that we need in order to do it. That entire cascade of receipt of order to calling out the tasks, explicit and implied, building courses of action.
I understand, but if something was in this is almost an issue of conscience at this point, right? We're relying on your issue of conscience that if you were asked to do something that contravened the Constitution and would greatly hurt the reputation of the military, that you, privately, I don't need you to do it publicly, but that you would stand up and push back and give your best military advice against such actions.
Senator, and I will do that publicly, that is an easy question. If I am ever put into a situation where 38 years of an oath is put at risk to do something different, the answer is simple. I will adhere to my oath to the Constitution. That's what is expected from the chairman. That's what's expected from the entire National Command Authority and from the American people.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I believe my time's up.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Butt.
Thank you, Chairman. General, it's good to see you. Enjoyed the time last week in the office. Thanks for your comments in regards to the solemnness of this day. And thanks for your willingness and that of your family to continue to serve. So one of my priorities in this role has been to reform the foreign military sales process. In our travels to visit with allies around the world, that's been a continual point of frustration. We want them to get the weapons and the equipment in places like Taiwan and the Philippines, and we want it to be done more quickly. One recommendation I've heard is to bake exportability into the production of these technologies at the outset of the development. Now that development is constrained by the requirements that you would put into the process. So what do you think about baking exportability into the requirements?
Senator, I just am not a foreign military sales specialist, but I will go to, I think, the commonality between the defense industrial base, what they produce, how they produce it, how quickly they produce it, and foreign military sales. I mean, the defense industrial base and the foreign military sales industrial base are essentially the same thing.
So if we could just broaden the question a bit, if you may not be an expert on foreign military sales, giving your best military advice, do you think there are ways that we could speed up the process and that we should?
I think, pursuant to the discussions we've had today, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Let's talk a bit about training. I know you have a history as an aviator. You're familiar with the limitations that the frontline units face, particularly with their training ranges, threat replication, OPSEC protocols, just to name a few. These limitations impact the training and readiness of the joint force for near-peer conflict. So if confirmed, how would you approach overcoming these challenges?
Thanks for the question. As a career aviator, we have run into restrictions in airspace, restrictions in emissions, restrictions in the physical space below you, what you can expend, how you can expend it. So the two ways to get beyond that, and that's virtual and constructive elements of the training continuum. We will never get, in my opinion, beyond the live feedback, the live aspect, but in order to sensitize and work out the longer range systems, the more exquisite systems, the systems that need to emit and receive without tipping your hand and also getting a workout, we need to emphasize virtual and constructive aspect as well. So that live, virtual, constructive continuum, those parts make up the greater part of it.
Thank you, John. So one of the provisions I led in this year's NDAA strengthens the department's ability to use tactical data links, something I imagine you know a lot about, specifically Link 16, and for testing and for training in the National Airspace System. So can you speak about the importance of Link 16 in the joint warfighting concept and the importance of preventing bureaucracy from impeding the ability in how we train and how we fight.
And Senator, this links back to the discussion we just had about limitations on training ranges and being able to use certain waveforms. As an aviator, I've been using Link 16 for a long time. It is the data link system of record, and it is critical to joint command and control. So accommodations that can be made to use that waveform, to use that data link so that we're expert at it. Once again, we don't get under center with no reps. With the data link across the systems is extremely important.
Thank you, General. On a different topic, in your understanding, who currently owns the DoD's requirements for joint protection from unmanned aerial systems?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the joint?
Yeah, unmanned aerial systems, or who in the department owns that? Is in charge of it? Let me preface it just a little bit more. I understand that Northcom acts as a synchronizer here, kind of a consultant on that. But as you see right now, are you satisfied with the jointness of the requirements and the solutions moving forward in regards to unmanned aerial systems?
This is an area where maybe we were slow on the get-go, but we're moving very, very quickly. We have service executives, and we have a combined joint task force for UAS and for county UAS, and I'm happy that we're moving at speed now, and everybody in what was kind of ungoverned space is starting to move in the same direction.
Thank you. I appreciate your willingness to serve. Look forward to supporting your efforts.
Thank you, Senator Doug.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Mahoney, thank you for your service, obviously, and thank you for our great conversation this week. I could spend my time with you discussing real security challenges facing the joint force, but I am instead forced to address the unthinkable. Following up on Senator Slotkin's question about deploying military to our nation's cities, the President of the United States has actually declared war on Chicago and is threatening to send troops there, not against a foreign enemy, not in response to an armed attack, not in response to a natural disaster or riots in the streets. He is simply declaring war on an American city. General, do you think it's appropriate for our troops to be performing policing duties on Americans on U.S. soil?
Senator, I think the appropriate use of the military is to protect all Americans under all circumstances.
Answer my question, General. Do you think it is appropriate for our troops to be used to perform policing duties on Americans on U.S. soil?
Policing duties is not a direct mission that I'm aware of, certainly not for the military.
Thank you. The President seems to think so. He has declared war on Chicago. He's puffing his chest, brazenly threatening to use the military to stage chaos and fear in our community so he can swoop in and normalize having military personnel on the streets of America. This is political theater that our fine men and women in uniform did not sign up for. General, if confirmed and the President asked the military to deploy to an American city, would you unequivocally advise against the military engaging domestically in arrests, detentions, and violations of civil rights?
Senator, I would comply with the law. I would comply with my experience of 38 years and my oath that I've taken to the Constitution. I cannot imagine any situation where our task would be to violate any American citizen's civil rights.
I've directly heard from constituents who are scared that our nation's armed forces will come to their door, that uniformed troops will come to their child's school, to their workplace, to be arrested, to be thrown into unmarked vehicles and pulled onto a military base to be detained there. Trump is intentionally blurring the lines between the military and the police to intimidate those who dare to speak out against his harmful policies. This separation of our military and the police forces is core to our Constitution, which everyone in uniform, including you and me and my colleagues on this dais, have sworn an oath to defend. Our founders enshrined protections in our Bill of Rights to protect Americans from this kind of abuse after the British Army invaded homes and engaged in unreasonable searches and seizures. As a daughter of the American Revolution, whose family has fought for this nation from its founding, I am horrified that President Trump is shredding the Constitution to turn our nation's military against Americans. Everyone deserves to feel safe from crime. But our nation's military is not the best tool to fight it. That's what the police are for. But Trump slashed at least $800 million in initiatives to prevent local crime, curb illegal guns, and support victims of crime. So let's be clear, Donald Trump does not care about crime. You and I, General, both know how costly it is for our military to take our eyes off the ball. And I appreciate your commitment to me, if confirmed, to ensure the joint forces focus on the Indo-Pacific, an area where you have substantial experience both on deployments and in a leadership role. I am concerned that forcing the military to turn against their fellow Americans takes away time, attention, and resources from innovating and solving the security challenges in the Indo-Pacific. We know the military can do this job, but I don't think our military should be patrolling the streets as they are here in DC, where they are spending their time with their M4s picking up garbage. While our troops are focused on policing, who is guarding us against foreign threats? What risks to our national security are we willing to swallow? We've already seen our adversaries taking advantage, but President Trump won't stand up to Putin, so he's picking a fight with Chicago. The military will always answer the call to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. But you and I both know that if the military has to support this dangerous distraction and execute all of its core missions at the same time, it will stretch our military too thin. You are more than qualified for this position, General, but I am deeply concerned that there will be a price to be paid by our troops and the American people for this president's hubris and this president's attempts to normalize putting troops on the streets in our city. And I hope that you will stand up and advise against, as you've already committed to doing, misuse of our military and unconstitutional use of our military. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Gillibrand.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to talk here today. General Mahoney, I echo some of the concerns that were mentioned by Senator Duckworth. We are in a time of grave risk, challenges, adversaries rising, the investments that China have made over the past 15 years in militarization, the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East. These are huge pressures on United States citizens and United States security and security of our allies. And the most important job that you have is to express advice and guidance to the President of the United States that is based on your years of acumen, study, and experience. And we need you to understand that you could be the difference between an action that is harmful and an action that is helpful based on your years of experience. And so my fundamental question to you is, are you prepared to stand in the breach of a terrible decision and the right decision for the national security and for the United States?
The direct answer, Senator, is yes. Two sub-bullets. I commit to you to adhere to the oath that I took as a second lieutenant and that I've repeated right up until 4-star. And the second point is, if there is divergence from that oath, I will speak out.
Thank you very much, General. This is the most important job you will ever do in your career, and the responsibility on your shoulders is significant. So we, as the Senate, as the Armed Services Committee, will be trusting in you to give us unfiltered advice, to give the President of the United States unfiltered advice, and to not stand down when opposed by people in the administration who disagree with you. You must stand forthrightly and always give the right advice.
I commit to that, Senator.
Thank you very much. A second question I just want to address with you. We have a rising issue of unmanned aerial drones. We have a rising challenge of drone incursions over military bases such as Langley. We have drone incursions now over allies that we just most recently in the news. We need a policy with regard to our own national security about how we are going to use drone technology, how we are going to defend against drone technology. And in my opinion, the biggest blind spot we have in the United States is domestic blindness. We don't have a solution if an adversarial drone is hovering over a major city or a major sporting event or a major musical event. We don't have a policy if adversarial drones are hovering over Langley for 2 weeks straight with no recourse and no decision being made to do something about it. And we don't yet have all the technology and investment that we need to make sure that we can prepare and respond appropriately to know who are manning those drones.
if it is an adversarial nation, and if it is a terrorist organization, and if it is a spy network. That is the kinds of intelligence that we need to be able to have a policy that's effective. I would like your commitment that you will work with this committee on a very robust drone policy about how to keep civilians safe over large gatherings such as sporting events and concerts, as well as our men and women who serve in the armed services when they are hovering over our important intelligence sites, important military sites, important equipment sites. I need to have that commitment that you will take this as seriously as the proliferation of war that it could well be.
Senator, you have my complete commitment, and you just described the tapestry of how we need to go about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kelly, you recognize. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, great seeing you again. Good to see an A6 intruder pilot here in front of the committee.
Really?
I love that airplane.
Really?
I want to discuss electronic warfare with you. As you know, we face a lot of challenges in the Western Pacific. The EW environment is changing dramatically.
Yep, that's what
and to be successful in a conflict, we are going to have to utilize some non-kinetic capabilities as well beyond what we can today. And that means we need to be able to test and experiment and train all in a realistic operational environment across all domains against emerging technologies and peer threats. That's why in the fiscal year 26 NDAA, we added a provision to carry out a demonstration of a joint multi-domain kinetic and non-kinetic testing and training environment across the services by connecting existing ranges and training sites in the western states, so stitching these things together. And we've seen efforts like the Western Regional Range Complex, where it can provide warfighters with realistic training in both very complex and congested multiple domain and electronic magnetic spectrum environments through a combination of advanced live and virtual and constructive environments with advanced modeling, simulation, all together with the relevant threat systems. So in your view, General, how important is it to have joint multi-domain testing and training environments that blends kinetic and non-kinetic efforts and effects to enable realistic training?
Senator, it's critical, and it's not an option. When back in the A6 days, we used to be pretty good at this. Penetrate, exploit, using the EM spectrum, whether it was EA6Bs, whether it was F111s, and we got out of that business for a long time, probably for the right reasons. But all the things that you indicate, and going back to Senator Budd's point about training, live, virtual, constructive, stitching together the ranges, having the ability to emit and receive and work out the systems is critical. It's not choice.
And can you talk a little bit about how this applies to conflict with China, which I do not believe is inevitable, but a conflict with China in the Western Pacific?
Use of, exploitation of, and the ability to manipulate the EM spectrum is part of your warfighting function of fires, of intel, etc. And you have to be able to do that in the way that you just spoke about from a training perspective in order to apply it. Should we have to fund?
And what are some of the challenges to getting this established here in CONUS? And how are we going to overcome these challenges?
I have confirmed as the chairman of the JROC, this will be one of the key operational problems that we pursue, which is electronic warfare more specifically, but electromagnetic spectrum. You can use the word dominance or exploitation. So in my position, should I be confirmed, this would be an operational problem that we will hit head on.
Yeah, I think it's a multi-department approach here. We're going to have to work with the FAA. We've already started to do some of that. But to be able to get this airspace appropriately stitched together, and also even beyond the EW, training, as weapon systems become more advanced, air-to-air missile systems are becoming longer range, so we need bigger ranges. The stick is longer. We can't have guys, having to turn and just immediately take a shot, virtual or real, and then immediately turn around and try to do it again. I mean, that gets, really challenging. I have another question about, before I was an A6 guy, I was at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Talk a little bit briefly in my remaining time about how important it is for us to rebuild our U.S. Merchant Marine when you're considering logistics across a 5,000-mile Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, you want a new idea, read an old book and look at the Merchant Marine and how they enabled victory in World War II. We need to take that not as an exact model, but as an exemplar of how we need to build back merchant shipping, merchant sailors, from the master on that.
Right. Thank you, General.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations, General Mahoney, on your nomination. This administration's politicization of the military undermines our democracy and is a betrayal of the men and women who signed up to put their lives on the line to protect this country. The Posse Comitatus Act is clear that the military generally should not be used for domestic law enforcement activities, but the Trump administration has deployed the military to perform law enforcement functions in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., and threatened to send troops into Chicago, Baltimore, and New Orleans. When Secretary Hexton came before this committee in June, I asked him how many American cities he would deploy troops to, and he wouldn't rule out any number, even if those missions put our military readiness at risk. General Mahoney, if you are confirmed, you will be responsible for overseeing joint military requirements. If this committee asks for your best military judgment on whether these operations are hurting readiness, will you share any concerns with us?
Senator, I will.
Okay, I appreciate that. A U.S. District Court recently ruled that the Trump administration willfully, that's their word, violated the Posse Comitatus Act during the troop deployment in Los Angeles. Arrests and detention should only be performed by civilian law enforcement, not the military. But the court found both bystanders and federal agencies, including the military commander, were unable to distinguish the members of the military from federal law enforcement agencies. General Mahoney, federal courts may soon find that deployments to Washington, Chicago, and Baltimore were illegal. If confirmed, will your military advice be to act in accordance with the findings of federal courts?
Senator, they will, in the fullness of the judicial process, if something is found legal or illegal, the advice will be based on that finding as a conclusive finding.
You're going to follow the courts then?
That's correct.
All right. So earlier this year, the Trump administration took $1 billion that Congress had appropriated for barracks renovations and redirected that money for border operations. This is funding meant to address barracks that have become completely unlivable, places with overflowing sewage and fire systems that don't work. You provided testimony to the Readiness Subcommittee earlier this year that investing in quality of life, quote, specifically our barracks for our Marines, close quote, are key investments, quote, if we are going to count on them to generate a lethal force. But the cost of asking the military to police American communities is only going to grow and eat into funds that are specifically designated by Congress to support our troops. So, General Mahoney, will you commit to providing this committee with your best military advice if you believe that funding is being moved without congressional authorization in a way that undermines service members' quality of life?
Sarah, I commit to giving you my best military advice on all issues, this one included.
I appreciate that. You know, it is completely un-American to unleash our troops on U.S. cities over the objections of their democratically elected governors and mayors. This president recently posted that Chicago would, quote, find out why it's called the Department of War, while he since denied that he meant to declare war on our own citizens. Make no mistake, this is dangerous. We cannot let the military become a political weapon to intimidate our communities, and I urge my Republican colleagues to wake up and stop the president and the secretary from grossly abusing his authority and abusing our military. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. This concludes today's hearing. I'd like to thank our witness for his testimony. For the information of members' questions for the record will be due to the committee by 12 p.m. on Friday. We are adjourned.